The opening scene से पढ़ना. The opening scene of the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the narrative of the Buddha's last days, text 464, gives us a glimpse into this tumultuous phase of Indian history when Magadha, the rising star among the northern monarchies, was expanding in influence and absorbing its neighboring tribal uh, republics. In the passage reproduced here, we see King Ajatasattu, the ruler of Magadha, setting his sights on the Vajian Confederacy, the largest and the best organized of the tribal republics. When the sutta opens, he sends his chief minister to inquire from the Buddha whether he has any chance of success in waging war against the Vajrayans. The Buddha questions Ananda about seven conditions of social stability that he had earlier taught the Vajrayans, concluding that as long as they keep to those seven principles, as long as these principles remain in force, the Vajrayans may be expected to prosper and not decline. He then convenes a meeting of the monks and teaches them seven analogous principles of stability applicable to the monastic order.
तो ये महापरिनिब्बाण सूक्त को रिफर कर रहे हैं भगवान बुद्ध का महापरिनिर्वाण होने के समय के दिन। उस समय जो अजात शत्रु राजा था वो अपने राज्य को बढ़ाना चाह रहा था, तो वज्जियंस जो थे उन पर हमला करना चाहता था, लेकिन उससे पहले उसने अपने जो मुख्य उनका मंत्री था उसको भगवान बुद्ध के पास भेजा और उनसे पूछना चाहा कि वज्जियन के अगेंस्ट में युद्ध करने जा रहा हूँ, क्या मैं जीतूंगा? तो इसमें बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से भगवान बुद्ध ने 7 कंडीशंस बताई थी कि अगर वज्जियंस ये फॉलो कर रहे हैं तो उनको कोई भी युद्ध में नहीं हरा सकता। और उसके बाद उसी के आधार पर उन्होंने भिक्षुओं के लिए भी फिर 7 प्रकार की कंडीशंस बताई जिससे कि उनकी साधना अच्छी रहे और उनको भी मार नहीं हरा सकता।
Since the eventual triumph,
आई
acha,
थिंक वी कैन
yeah,
रीड दिस।
seven principles of social stability. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was staying at Rajgah on Mount Vulture Peak. Now, just then, King Ajatsattu Vedehiputta of Magadha wanted to attack the Vajjayans. He said, I will strike the Vajjayans who are so powerful and strong. I will cut them off and destroy them. I will bring them to ruin and destruction. And King Ajatsattu said to his chief minister, the Brahman Vasakara, uh, Brahmin, go to the Blessed One, worship him with your head to his feet in my name, ask if he is free from sickness or disease, if he is living at ease, vigorously and comfortably, and then say, Lord, King Ajatsattu Vedehiputta of Magadha wishes to attack the Vajjayans and says, I will strike the Vajjayans, bring them to ruin and destruction. And whether the Blessed One declares to you, and whatever the Blessed One declares to you, report that faithfully back to me, for the Thagatas never lie. Very good, sire, said Vasakara, and having had the state carriages harnessed, he mounted one of them and drove in state from Rajagaha to Vulture's Peak, riding as far as the ground would allow, then continuing on foot to where the Blessed One was. He exchanged courtesies with the Blessed One, then sat down to one side and delivered the king's message. Now, the Venerable Ananda was standing behind the Blessed One, fanning him, and the Blessed One said, Ananda, have you heard that the Vajrayans hold regular and frequent assemblies? I have heard, Venerable Sir, that they do. Ananda, as long as the Vajjayans hold regular and frequent assemblies, they may be expected to prosper and not decline. Have you heard that the Vajjayans meet in harmony, break up in harmony, and carry on their business in harmony? I have heard, Venerable Sir, that they do. Ananda, as long as the Vajjayans meet in harmony, break up in harmony, and carry on their business in harmony, they may be expected to prosper and not decline. Have you heard that the Vajjayans do not authorize what has not been authorized already and do not abolish what has been authorized, but proceed according to what has been authorized by their ancient tradition? I have, sir, Venerable Sir. Have you heard that they honor, respect, revere, and salute the elders among them and consider them worth listening to? That they do not forcibly abduct others' wives and daughters and compel them to live with them? That they honor, respect, revere, and salute the Vajjayan shrines at home and abroad, not withdrawing the proper support made and given before? That proper provision is made for the safety of arhants so that such arhants may come in future to live there and those already there may dwell in comfort? I have, Lord. Ananda, so long as such proper provision is made, the Vajjayans may be expected to prosper and not decline. Then, Nikhilji, do you want to do till here and then I'll.
ओके। तो इसमें जो अजात शत्रु का पूरा नाम है अजात शत्रु वैदेही पुत्र, वो उन्होंने अपने मंत्री हैं, उनका नाम है वत्स्यकार। उनको भेजा है भगवान बुद्ध के पास, तो वो रथ लेकर गए हैं, फिर पैदल चलकर उनके पास पहुंचे हैं और उनसे कहा है कि हम वज्जियंस के ऊपर आक्रमण करने जा रहे हैं और उनको समाप्त कर देंगे, तो आप हमें बताइए कि इज इट अ गुड आइडिया, ये अच्छा बात है और हम उनको हरा सकते हैं कि नहीं हरा सकते हैं। तो भगवान बुद्ध ने ये 7 पॉइंट्स बताए। वो उस समय आनंद उनके पास खड़े हुए थे, तो भगवान बुद्ध ने ये 7 पॉइंट्स आनंद से पूछे, जिसमें पहला पॉइंट था कि क्या जो वज्जियंस हैं वो सभा करते हैं आपस में मिलजुल कर समय समय पर? तो आनंद ने बोला हाँ जी, वो सभाओं में इकट्ठे होते हैं। फिर दूसरा उन्होंने बोला कि ये जो जब ये लोग मिलते हैं तो उनमें आपसी सामंजस्य होता है, और जब जब सभाएं खत्म होती है तो भी सामंजस्य से खत्म होती हैं। तो उन्होंने बोला हाँ, ऐसा भी है। तो फिर उन्होंने बोला कि पहला पहला पॉइंट में भी अगर चल रहा है तो उनको नहीं हराया जा सकता, और दूसरा पॉइंट अगर है उस तो भी उनको नहीं हराया जा सकता। तीसरा था कि क्या वो जो उनके पुराने प्राचीन परंपराएं हैं उसमें अपने मनमानी ढंग से तो चेंजेस नहीं कर रहे हैं और सिस्टमैटिक वे में ही कर रहे हैं। तो उन्होंने बोला हाँ, ऐसा है, वो प्राचीन परंपराओं के अनुसार चल रहे हैं। तो उन्होंने बोला कि फिर वो सुरक्षित हैं, उनको नहीं हरा सकते। चौथे पॉइंट में उन्होंने बोला कि वो जो वहाँ पर बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, बड़े लोग हैं, उनका सम्मान करते हैं कि नहीं करते हैं। पाँचवें आनंद ने इसमें भी सही सकारात्मक ही उत्तर दिया। फिर उन्होंने बोला कि क्या वहाँ पर जो दूसरे की पत्नियाँ, बेटियाँ, महिलाएँ हैं, उनका सम्मान होता है? तो उन्होंने बोला जी होता है। फिर छठवें में उन्होंने बोला कि वहाँ पर जो तीर्थ स्थल हैं, क्या उनको सपोर्ट दिया जाता है उनको रख-रखाव के लिए? तो आनंद ने बोला कि हाँ, वज्जियन ऐसा करते हैं। सातवें में उन्होंने बोला कि वहाँ पर जो अरहंत्स हैं, जो साधु पुरुष हैं, क्या उनके उनकी सुरक्षा का और ध्यान रखा जाता है और उनको पिंड-पाद वगैरह दिया जाता है? तो आनंद ने बोला हाँ, ऐसा भी है। तो भगवान बुद्ध ने कहा कि अगर ये इस प्रकार के 7 प्रिंसिपल्स हैं तो फिर वज्जन को नहीं हरा सकते हैं।
Then the Lord said to the Brahmin Vasakara, once, Brahmin, when I was at Sarananda shrine in Vesali, I taught the Vajjayans these seven principles for preventing decline, and as long as they keep to these seven principles, as long as these principles remain in force, the Vajjayans may be expected to prosper and not decline. At this, Vasakaras replied, Master Gautama, if the Vajjayans keep to even one of these principles, they may be expected to prosper and not decline, far less all seven. Certainly, the Vajjayans will never be conquered by King Ajatsattu by force of arms, but only by means of propaganda and setting them against one another. And now, Master Gautama, I must depart. I am busy and have much to do. Brahmin, do you think do as you think fit. Then Vasakara, rejoicing and delighted at the Blessed One's words, rose from his seat and departed. Soon after Vasakara had gone, the Blessed One said, Ananda, go to whatever monks there are living around Rajgaha and summon them to the assembly hall. Yes, venerable sir, said Ananda, and he did so. Then he came to the Blessed One, saluted him, and stood to one side and said, Venerable sir, the Sangha of monks is assembled. Now is the time for the Blessed One to do as he sees fit. Then the Blessed One rose from his seat, went to the assembly hall, sat down on the prepared seat, and said, Monks, I will teach you seven things that are conducive to welfare. Listen, pay careful attention, and I will speak. Yes, venerable sir, said the monks, and the Blessed One said, As long as the monks hold regular and frequent assemblies, they may be expected to prosper and not decline. As long as they meet in harmony, break up in harmony, and carry on their business in harmony, they may be expected to prosper and not decline. As long as they do not authorize what has not been authorized already, do not abolish what has been authorized, but proceed according to what has been authorized by the rules of the training, as long as they honor, respect, revere, salute the elders of long standing who are long ordained fathers and leaders of the order, as long as they do not fall prey to the craving that arises in them and leads to rebirth, as long as they are devoted to forest lodgings, as long as they preserve their mindfulness regarding the body, so that in future the good among their companions will come to them, and those who have already come will feel at ease with them. As long as the monks hold to these seven things and are seen to do so, they may be expected to prosper and not decline. DN 16 Parinibbana Sutta.
तो इसमें भगवान बुद्ध ने फिर जो ब्राह्मण वस्त्रकार है उनको बताया कि ये जो सेवन प्रिंसिपल्स है मैंने ही वज्जियंस को बताए थे और अगर ये सात तो छोड़िए केवल एक भी प्रिंसिपल को वो अच्छे से आप होल्ड कर रहे हैं तो वो लोग समृद्धि होंगे उनको हरा नहीं सकते आप लोग और क्या कहते हैं इसमें लिखा है सर्टेनली वज्जियंस विल नेवर बी कंक्वायर्ड बट ओनली बाय मींस ऑफ प्रोपेगेंडा सो वसीकारा ने बोला कि ठीक है फिर मैं समझ गया तो बाद में हम वहां पर कुछ अपनी तरफ से साजिशें रच के पहले उनके इन नियमों को तोड़ेंगे और तब उनको हम हरा सकते हैं और ऐसा करके भगवान बुद्ध ने उसको बोला कि ठीक है आपको जैसा उचित लगे जाके करिए और वो चला गया ब्राह्मण वस्त्रकार उसके बाद फिर भगवान बुद्ध ने आनंद को बोला कि यहाँ पर राजगृह में आसपास जितने भी भिक्षु हैं उनको बुलाइए एंड हम उनको कुछ प्रॉब्ली वो उनको देशना देंगे तो जब सारे भिक्खु आए तो फिर भगवान बुद्ध ने उनको ये 7 पॉइंट्स बताए जो कि शुरू में तो कॉमन ही है वज्जियन से और बाद में बदल जाते हैं भिक्खुओं के लिए तो पहला कॉमन है कि मॉन्क्स को रेगुलर एंड फ्रीक्वेंट असेंबली, वो समय समय पर और निर्धारित समय पर सभाएं करते रहे, तो भिक्षु संघ समृद्ध होता जाएगा। साथ ही मॉन्क्स जब भी आपस में मिले तो हार्मनी में मिले, सामंजस्य से मिले, और मीटिंग भी सामंजस्य में खत्म करे, तो भिक्षु संघ प्रॉस्पर होता जाएगा। और परंपराओं, अपने विनय के जो रूल्स हैं, द रूल्स ऑफ ट्रेनिंग, उनको अपने आप से नए ना बना लें, जो चले आ रहे हैं उनको फॉलो करें, ऐसा लिखा, तो भी भिक्षु संघ समृद्ध होएगा। फिर इसके बाद है कि जो भिक्षु संघ में बड़े और पुराने भिक्षु हैं, उनका हम सम्मान करते रहे और उनसे गाइडेंस लेते रहे, तो भी भिक्षु संघ प्रॉस्पर होगा। ये तो कॉमन ही हो गए जो वज्जन के साथ थे। अब यहाँ से बदल जाते हैं। इसके बाद उन्होंने लिखा है कि अगर वो जो उनके अंदर तृष्णाएं उठ रही हैं, उनके प्रति वो झुकाव नहीं रखते हैं, उनके शिकार नहीं होते हैं, जो कि पुनर्जन्म दिला सकती हैं, तो भी भिक्षु संघ प्रॉस्पर होएगा। उसके अलावा फिर अगर वो लिविंग सिंपल लगते हैं, फॉरेस्ट ड्वेलिंग, अरण्य विहार ही करते हैं वो, तो भी भिक्षु संघ समृद्ध होता जाएगा। साथ ही लिखा है, as long as they preserve their mindfulness regarding the body, so that in future the good among their companions will come to them, and those who have already come will feel at ease with them. ये इसमें मुझे क्या बोलूं, मतलब जिन्होंने, जिनको कायानुपස්සना में धैर्य रखेंगे, उसके बाद क्या इसको मैं ट्रांसलेट करूं, सो दैट द फ्यूचर, इन फ्यूचर द गुड अमंग देयर कंपेनियंस विल कम टू देम।
ये मुझे भी समझ में नहीं आया।
ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे, मतलब अगर कोई उनमें से ही बेटर बेटर करेगा तो वो अ, उनको एक्सेप्ट कर पाए माइंडफुली, और जो उनके हु हैव ऑलरेडी कम वाइल विल फील ईज, मतलब जो प्रेजेंटली है और उनको कोई उस तरह से अ, आपत्ति नहीं होगी उनकी उस, ये जो।
हम्म। विशाल जी ने भी कुछ, विशाल जी आप प्लीज बताइए, फिर हम लोग मे बी विल कम टू सम कंक्लूजन।
In my opinion, it refers to, see, mindfulness of the body. The Buddha describes very frequently as the way to reach stream entry and beyond. So, in my opinion, he's referring to that because if you look at the corresponding verses referring to lay people, at that point he also talks about arahants, right? So I have a sense that in this particular paragraph, he's talking to the monks about that as leading to different stages of awakening. So he's saying that if you practice mindfulness of the body, then goodness, as evidenced in these words, I think means awakening will rise in their companions, and those who've already awakened will sort of stay, will have that sense of stability and perhaps even progress further. That's what I think. But then again, it could be interpreted in many ways, I think.
Okay, I mean the others will feel motivated, you are saying?
हाँ, वो अरहंत बने या फिर जो भी अपने उनसे बेटर कर रहे हैं, जो रह रहे हैं एग्जिस्टिंग, दैट्स व्हाट विशाल जी इज आल्सो सेइंग, बट इन अ डिफरेंट वर्ड्स। तो
कोई
I
और
think that
इंटरप्रिटेशन?
it may mean that those who haven't yet had awakening will have awakening, and those who've already had some level of awakening will continue to stay at that level or progress to further levels of awakening.
Any other interpretation by anyone in the audience? Or do they agree? It's like that if someone is cultivating the paramita, others are getting benefited, right? That is what it says.
अगर कोई, जैसे कोई अरहंत किसी से मतलब मुदित हो ना,
Hmm.
मुदित होना, दूसरे की परफॉर्मेंस अच्छी होती है तो उससे मुदित होना है। ना कि उससे वो, और जितने लोग हैं वो भी, I mean that's what I felt maybe. बढ़े आगे।
हाँ, मैं बस एक छोटी सी चीज इसमें शेयर करना चाह रहा था। ये सूत्र को मेरे फ्रेंड सर्कल्स में जैसे एक बार कभी बात हो रही थी, तो देवर उनको गलतफहमी थी कि भगवान बुद्ध केवल अहिंसा की बात करते हैं, और दैट कुड बी नॉट गुड थिंग फॉर ए नेशन। तो फिर इस सूत्र को, चूंकि हमने ये बुक पहले पढ़ रखी थी, तो इस सूत्र को मैंने रेफर करके बताया था कि ऐसा नहीं है। उन्होंने वज्जियंस को कैसे ताकतवर बनना है उसके सूत्र दिए हुए हैं। सो इट्स नॉट, इट्स अ गलतफहमी है कि एक तरह से माइंडसेट बना दिया कि गौतम बुद्ध की वजह से अहिंसा होती है और हमारा समाज कमजोर हो सकता है। तो ऐसा नहीं है। तो देन दे एग्रीड, या आई मीन बिकॉज दिस इज इन द लिटरेचर। सो ये घटना मुझे याद आ गई। वेरी हेल्पफुल सूत्र।
हाँ, मेरे को भी ये पूरा सेक्शन ही आई थिंक सो सिर्फ मंक्स के लिए नहीं, ले पीपल के लिए भी कैसे हार्मनी रहे, या हाउ टू लिव लाइफ अकॉर्डिंग टू धम्मा वाला जो बात है, वो बिल्कुल एप्लीकेबल होती है, जो कॉमन कॉमन मैन वुमन या कॉमन सोशल स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें।
मुझे क्वेश्चन है, ये क्वेश्चन है कि कंटेंशन है, बट ये द सेकंड कैन, आई मीन इफ द बुक कैन बी kept, scroll up a little bit on the lay people wala part, the Vajjians wala part, sorry, और ऊपर थोड़ा सा, हाँ एक मिनट, थर्ड वाला Virgins do not authorize what has not been authorized already, do not abolish what has been authorized, but proceed according to what has been authorized by their ancient tradition. Why am I missing the point here? Like I'm feeling like, अरे but इससे तो कभी progress होगी ही नहीं. You know, like it, yeah. I mean, iska and yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying here, right? Because yeah. Is my question there? Am I able to put it out there कि अगर हम बार बार सिर्फ अगर हम क्वेश्चन ही नहीं करेंगे हायरार्की को, तो दे वुड कम अ पॉइंट जहाँ पे हम बस फॉलो करे जा रहे हैं एंशियंट ट्रेडिशन को और हम प्रोग्रेस नहीं कर रहे. एंड ऑफ कोर्स आई एम जस्ट reading the words as is, and so I'm putting that out there. I don't know. I'm a bit confused with this one.
ये ना, मैं अभी मेरे मन में जो था, विशाल जी का कमेंट देखकर भी मैं बता रहा हूँ ना। वर्जियंस रिपब्लिक थे, उनका संविधान है, वो बोले हैं संविधान के हिसाब से चलो, डू नॉट ऑथोराइज, अपने मन से कुछ मत करो। वो ऐसा बोल रहे हैं, ये नहीं बोले हैं कि आप नया इनोवेशन मत करो, बट व्हाट दे आर सेइंग कि डोंट प्ले विद, जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, अराजकता मत फैलाओ। वो वाली बात है यहाँ पर, और कुछ नहीं।
I think it's a good point, but I think we have to be a little cautious in not interpreting these teachings in a very modern way of looking at the world and trying to find sort of some degree of equivalency between that and now, because then we'd probably end up getting sort of tied up in knots. The point is that the Fijians were an ancient republic. Now, compared to current democracy, perhaps they weren't as democratic because in the Fijian system, not everybody could vote. There were only certain families and certain guilds, etc. But I think the point I was making is that in that system, it was probably the most progressive system in those times. So if they had gotten together and decided to do something, they would have authorized it. So I think what perhaps the Buddha is saying is that follow that idea. In fact, later down, he also there's some evidence that the Buddha perhaps didn't completely approve of the monarchical system, right? Because he talks about it in the subsequent paragraph. And so I think that in my understanding, he's suggesting that the way that they've been doing things with consensus and coming up with ways to perhaps better their traditions, as long as it's done in the collective manner in which they're doing, that's okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if we were to examine their social mores, we would totally agree with them. But then there might be certain things we do that they wouldn't agree with either. So we just have to be a bit careful about not using our modern standards to unfavorably judge the ancients. Because if you look at the rest of the points, they're all very positive, right? He talks about respecting women, honoring and respecting elders, etc. So the general drift of these, as I understand it, is pretty positive, and in today's world, you might call it progressive. But then again, we're talking about 2,500 years ago.
So Yashika ji, आपने you got it somewhere? You are satisfied?
Yeah, I think definitely that input helps for sure.
And there's a book that I had sent a link for there, which is a very nice telling of the suttas that Bhikkhu Bodhi did, that I think Yashikaji might be worth reading because he's found all of the teachings within the canon that are pertinent to sort of communal and social issues, and he's put it in a book. So that might also be interesting to read if you haven't already read it.
Thank you. I did click on the link that you shared. Saved it for future. I think we'll have to go to yeah. The wheel turning monarch rules for the welfare and happiness of his subjects and extends protection to all within his realm, even to the birds and beasts. Among his duties is to prevent crime from erupting in his kingdom, and to keep the kingdom safe from crime, he must give wealth to those in need. For, in the view of the Nikayas, poverty is the breeding ground for criminality. This theme, mentioned among the duties of the wheel turning monarch in text 465, is elaborated in text 466. We here see a wise chaplain advise a king uh, that the correct way to end the plague of theft and brigandage in his realm is not by imposing harsher punishments and stricter law enforcement, but by giving the citizens the means to earn their living. Once the people enjoy a satisfactory standard of living, they will lose all interest in harming others, and the country will enjoy peace and tranquility. Nikhil ji.
हाँ जी। तो इसमें जो चक्रवर्ती सम्राट है, वो अपनी प्रजा की सुरक्षा के लिए और उनकी देखभाल के लिए और इवन जो उसके राज्य में पशु पक्षी हैं, उनकी देखभाल के लिए भी वो चिंता करता है। और उसका जो जो ड्यूटीज है वो है कि भाई राज्य में अपराध ना बढ़े, और साथ ही जो अपराध ना बढ़े वो कैसे ना बढ़े, तो उसके लिए है कि जो जिनको जरूरतमंद है उनको समय पर पैसा और सामग्री उपलब्ध होती रहे, क्योंकि जो निकायज है उनके अनुसार जो गरीबी है वो कहीं ना कहीं अपराध के लिए एक उर्वरक भूमि बन जाती है। और इसी में जो आगे टेक्स्ट आने वाले हैं वो देखेंगे, जिसमें एक राजा का पुरोहित उसको समझा रहा है कि ये जो चोरी और अराजकता है उसको आप कानून के माध्यम से हैवी पनिशमेंट लगा के नहीं रोक सकते। बजाय इसके आप बेहतर है कि आप नागरिकों को वो माध्यम दें जिससे वो अपनी जीविका कमा सकें, और जब लोग अपनी जीविका को संतोषजनक रूप से कमा लेंगे तो फिर उनका खुद ही मन नहीं होगा कि वो किसी को हार्म करे, और देश में शांति रहेगी।
आई थिंक इसके ऊपर वाला है। And after many hundreds and thousands of years, King Dalhainimi said to a certain man, "My good man, whenever you see that the sacred wheel treasure has slipped from its position, report it to me." "Yes, sire," the man replied. And after many hundreds and thousands of years, the man saw that the sacred wheel treasure had slipped from its position. Seeing this, he reported the fact to the king. The king, Dalhavanemi, sent for his eldest son, the crown prince, and said, "My son, the sacred wheel treasure has slipped from its position, and I have heard say that when this happens to a wheel turning monarch, he has not much longer to live. I have had my fill of human pleasures. Now is the time to seek heavenly pleasures. You, my son, take over control of this land. I will shave off my hair and beard, put on ochre robes, and go forth from the household life into homelessness." And having installed his eldest son in due form as king, King Dalhanemi shaved off his hair and beard, put on ochre robes, and went forth from the household life into homelessness. And 7 days after the royal sage had gone forth, the sacred wheeled treasure vanished. Then a certain man came to the consecrated Khatia king and said, "Sire, you should know that the sacred wheel treasure has disappeared." At this, the king was grieved and felt sad. He went to the royal sage and told him the news, and the royal sage said to him, "My son, you should not grieve or feel sad at the disappearance of the wheel treasure. The wheel treasure is not an heirloom from your fathers. But now, my son, you must turn yourself into a noble wheel turner. And then it may come about that if you perform the duties of a noble wheel turning monarch, on the Uposatha day of the 15th, when you have washed your head and gone up to the veranda on the top of your palace for the Uposatha day, the sacred wheel treasure will appear to you, thousand spoked, complete with rim, hub, and all accessories. But what, sire, is the duty of a noble wheel turning monarch? It is this, my son: yourself depending on the Dhamma, honoring it, revering it, cherishing it, doing homage to it, and venerating it, having the Dhamma as your badge and banner, acknowledging the Dhamma as your master. You should establish righteous guard, ward, and protection for your own household, your troops, your khatiyas, and vassals, for Brahmins and householders, town and country folks, ascetics and Brahmins, for beasts and birds. Let no crime prevail in your kingdom, and to those who are in need, give wealth. And whatever ascetics and Brahmins in your kingdom have renounced the life of sensual infatuation and are devoted to forbearance and gentleness, each one taming himself, each one calming himself, and each one striving for the end of craving, from time to time, you should approach them and ask, what, venerable sirs, is wholesome? What is unwholesome? What is blameworthy? And what is blameless? What is to be followed? And what is not to be followed? What action will in the long run lead to harm and sorrow, and what to welfare and happiness? Having listened to them, you should avoid what is unwholesome and do what is wholesome. That, my son, is the duty of a noble wheel turning monarch. Yes, sire, said the king, and he performed the duties of a noble wheel turning monarch. And as he did so, on the Oppositha day of the 15th, when he had washed his head and gone up to the veranda on the top of his palace or for the Oppositha day, the sacred veil treasure appeared to him, the thousand spoked, complete with rim, hub, and all accessories. Then the king thought, I have heard that when a duly anointed Khattiya king sees such a field on the Oppositha day of the 15th, he will become a wheel turning monarch. May I become such a monarch? Then, rising from his seat, covering one shoulder with his robe, the king took a gold vessel in his left hand, sprinkled the wheel with his right hand, and said, May the noble wheel treasure turn, may the noble wheel treasure conquer. The wheel turned to the east, and the king followed it with his fourfold army. And in whatever country the wheel stopped, the king took up residence with his fourfold army. And those who opposed him in the eastern region came and said, Come, your majesty, welcome. We are yours, your majesty. Rule us, your majesty. And the king said, Do not take life, do not take what is not given, do not commit sexual misconduct, do not tell lies, do not drink intoxicating drinks. Enjoy your possessions as before. And those who had opposed him in the eastern region became his subjects. Then the wheel turned south, west, and north, as in section 6. Then the wheel treasure, having conquered the lands from sea to sea, returned to the royal capital and stopped before the king's palace as he was trying a case, as if to adorn the royal palace. DN 26, I do not know how to pronounce it. Ka- Sa- Kavati Si-
चक्रवर्ती चक्रवर्ती
Chakravati Sihananda Sutta.
सिंहनाद जी। तो ये इसमें एक राजा है दृढ़नेमी, उनके बारे में है कि वो एक चक्रवर्ती सम्राट हुए थे और उन्होंने अपने किसी व्यक्ति को बोला कि जब आप देखें कि जो पवित्र एक ये साइन होगा व्हील ट्रेजर, कोई कोई प्रॉब्ली एक सिंबल है कहीं पर रखा हुआ है, और वो अगर स्लिप हो जाता है तो समझना चाहिए कि धर्म का लॉस हो रहा है और उसके आगे कुछ कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस होते होंगे। तो उन्होंने बोला था कि जब भी ये जो चक्र है हमारा व्हील ट्रेजर है, इसको अगर ये स्लिप हो जाए तो आप मुझे बता देना। और काफी हजारों वर्षों तक उस राजा ने राज किया और उसके बाद व्यक्ति ने आके उनको बताया कि वो जो आपका पवित्र चक्र है वो अपनी जगह से स्लिप हो चुका है। तो राजा ने अपने सबसे बड़े बेटे को बुलाया और बोला कि ये एक मेरे लिए साइन है कि एंड आई हैव हर्ड दैट व्हेन दिस हैपेंड, अगर कोई एक चक्रवर्ती राजा है, उसके समय में इस प्रकार के साइन अगर आ जाते हैं तो उसके पास ज्यादा जीवन की नहीं बचता है। और मैंने अपना जो ये मनुष्य लोक का जीवन है अच्छे से जी लिया है, अब मुझे स्वर्ग में जाऊंगा मैं, और आप ये जो मेरा राज्य है इसको आप ले ले। मैं अपने बालों को शेव मतलब बाल और दाढ़ी वगैरह हटाकर, और भगवा या जो भगवान बुद्ध के समय वस्त्र होते थे उनको धारण करके परिव्राजक हो जाऊंगा। और ऐसा करके वो किंग द्रंडनेमी निकल गए। और 7 दिन के बाद ही, 7 days आफ्टर द रॉयल सेज हैड गॉन फोर्थ द सेक्रेड व्हील टर्निंग वैनिश, तो वो उनको राजर्षि बोला। 7 दिन के बाद वो जो राजऋषि जब चले गए, वो राजा दंडनेमी, तो वो जो उनका वहां पर सिंबल था वो भी गायब हो गया। तो अभी जो उसके बाद जो नए युवराज राजा बन गए थे, उनके पास आके किसी व्यक्ति ने बोला कि वो जो कि यहाँ सिंबल था सेक्रेड व्हील ट्रेजर का, वो तो गायब हो चुका है। तो वो राजा परेशान हो गया, और उसने अपने राजपुरोहित से पूछा। तो राजपुरोहित ने बोला कि इसके लिए दुखी होने की जरूरत नहीं है, ये कोई तुम्हारी विरासत से नहीं मिला है। अभी आपको खुद ही फिर से चक्रवर्ती बनना पड़ेगा। और उसके लिए आपको क्या करना है, तो उन्होंने बोला है कि देन इट मे कम अबाउट, ये वापस से आ जाएगा, ये सिंबल अगर अपियर हो जाएगा, इफ यू परफॉर्म द ड्यूटीज ऑफ ए नोबल व्हील टर्निंग मोनार्क ऑन द अपोजिट डे ऑफ द 15th, आई मीन एक सर्टेन डे पर ऐसा लिखा है कि उपोषथ के 15वें दिन जब आप अपने स्नान वगैरह करके पहुंचेंगे तो ये अपने आप आ जाएगा, प्रोवाइडेड कि आप चक्रवर्ती धार्मिक राजा की सारी कंडीशंस को पूरा करें। और उसके लक्षण भी बताए हैं कि उसमें थाउजेंड्स रिम्स हैं, और इस प्रकार के जैसे एक व्हील होता है वैसा बताया गया है। तो फिर युवराज ने पूछा पुरोहित से कि वो कौन सी ड्यूटीज होती है। तो पुरोहित ने उनको बताया है कि सबसे पहले तो आप स्वयं धर्म का पालन करें और उसको चैरिश करें, और उसका अच्छे से पालन करते हुए कि धर्म ही मेरा मास्टर है, धर्म ही मेरे को आगे बढ़ा रहा है। फिर आप जो स्वयं का घर है, आपकी सेना है, और आपके राज्य में रहने वाले ब्राह्मण, सारी प्रजा, पशु पक्षी, इन सबको आप सुरक्षित रखें, और अपने राज्य में कोई अपराध ना होने दें। साथ ही अगर आपको लगता है कि किसी को पैसे की जरूरत है तो उनको प्रोवाइड करें। और जो भी अगर आपके राज्य में फॉर वॉट एवर एसेटिक्स इन योर किंगडम रिनाउंस द लाइफ, हाँ, जो भी आपके राज्य में साधु लोग हैं, जो भी परिव्राजक है, उनके पास जाए जो स्वयं अभ्यास कर रहे हैं धम्म का, जिसमें सहनशीलता और खुद के ऊपर संयम रखने का अभ्यास जो लोग कर रहे हैं, तो उनके पास जाकर अम, आप उनसे प्रश्न पूछें कि क्या कुशल है, क्या अकुशल है, क्या ऐसा है जिसको हम बोलेंगे कलंकित करने वाला है, क्या कलंकित नहीं करने वाला है, क्या हमें किस चीज का पालन करना चाहिए, किस चीज का पालन नहीं करना चाहिए, ऐसे कौन से हमारे कर्म है जो भविष्य में हमें दुख लाएंगे, और ऐसे कौन से कर्म है जो भविष्य में हमारे लिए सुख लाएंगे। और उनको सुन के आप उसको फॉलो भी करिए। तो जो युवराज थे उन्होंने ऐसा ही किया इसमें आगे। तो वही हुआ, उसके बाद वो एक पर्टिकुलर डे पर वो जो साइन डिसअपियर हो गया था वो फिर से आ गया सामने। और अब उस राजा ने सोचा कि मैंने ये भी जाना है कि जब ये साइन अपियर हो जाता है तो फिर उस राजा को चक्रवर्ती होने से कोई नहीं रोक सकता। तो क्यों ना मैं एक छत्र राज करूं। और ऐसा करके उसने सेना लेकर आगे बढ़ा। और जब वो ईस्ट दिशा में, पूर्व दिशा में गया, तो वहां पर जो लोग पहले उसका अपोज कर रहे थे उन्होंने हार मान ली। और उन्होंने कहा कि आपका स्वागत है, आप हम पर राज्य करिए। तो उस राजा ने बोला कि आप अपनी किंगडम को एंजॉय करते रहो, और ये जो शील उन्होंने बताए कि प्राणी हत्या ना करें, चोरी ना करें, और व्यभिचार ना करें, झूठ ना बोले, और मद्यपान ना करें, इतना करिए और अपना राज्य करते रहिए। तो ऐसा करने पर वो राजा मान गया और उसकी प्रजा बन गए एक तरह से। और सभी दिशाओं में ऐसा ही हुआ। और लास्ट आई एम नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड स्टॉप बिफोर द किंग्स पैलेस एज ही वर ट्राइंग ए केस एज इफ टू अडोन द रॉयल पैलेस। Probably he just stopped और ही वाज चेरिशिंग कि मेरे पिता ने भी ऐसा किया था और देखो मैं भी वैसा बन गया हूँ। कोई
Adorn का
मेरे
मतलब होता है
अनुवाद
to
में,
add something
हाँ,
in order to make a thing or person more attractive or beautiful.
किसका
So I think
मतलब?
adorn.
हाँ, आई मीन ये आई थिंक कि उसका सार तत्व तो ऊपर ही है। ये उसमें कुछ उस समय का लिखा है कि प्रॉब्ली ही जस्ट चेरिश्ड इट, यस राइट। और ये चक्रवर्ती सिंहनाद, सिंहनाद मतलब शेर की दहाड़, चक्रवर्ती राजा के शेर की दहाड़ सुनते हैं ये। कोई भी अगर कंफ्यूजन होए तो आप लोग कृपया हाथ उठा ले या पूछ ले।
हम तो इन बुद्धाज वर्ड्स पढ़ रहे थे ना, तो ये कैसे यहाँ पे आ गया?
ये एक्चुअली फोर्थ चैप्टर ही रिलेटेड है ना, जो इस लोक में जो खुशी मिलती है, तो इसमें वो राजा के लिए बता रहे हैं कि चक्रवर्ती सम्राट कैसे बना जा सकता है। प्रॉब्ली इट रिमाइंड्स मी अशोका ऑल्सो, नो। उसने भी बाद में जब बुद्ध धर्म एक्वायर कर लिया था तो केवल यही समझाया। एंड एंड दिस, या, एंड दैट समवेयर गिव अस ए सेंस कि धम्मा का जो, जिसको हम दैवीय शक्तियां बोलते हैं, वो प्रोटेक्शन कब दे सकती है। Normally, people are after arsenals and big things, but probably so-called Dhamma protection is given by this, and it makes you winner. Is it okay, Yashika ji? Right?
Yeah, yeah, that should be fine. Okay. Bringing tranquility to the land. Sitting to one side, the Brahman Kutadanta addressed the Blessed One. Master Gautama, I have heard that you understand how to conduct successfully the triple sacrifice with its 16 requisites. Now, I do not understand all this, but I want to make a big sacrifice. It would be good if Master Gautama would explain this to me. Then listen, Brahman, pay proper attention, and I will explain. Yes, sir, replied Kutadanta, and the Blessed One continued. Brahmin, once upon a time, there was a king called Mahavijita. He was rich, of great wealth and resources, with an abundance of gold and silver, of possessions and requisites, of money and money's birth, with a full treasury and granary. And when King Mahavijita was reflecting in private, the thought came to him, I have acquired extensive wealth in human terms. I occupy a wide extent of land which I have conquered. Let me now make a great sacrifice that would be my benefit and happiness for a long time. And calling his chaplain, he told him his thought. I want to make a great sacrifice. Instruct me, venerable sir, how this may be my lasting benefit and happiness. The chaplain replied, your Majesty's country is beset by thieves. It is ravaged, villages and towns are being destroyed. The countryside is infested with brigands. If your Majesty were to tax this region, that would be wrong thing to do. Suppose your Majesty were to think, I will get rid of this plague of robbers by executions and imprisonment, or by confiscation, threats, and banishment. The plague would not be properly ended. Those who survived would later harm your Majesty's realm. However, with this plan, you can completely eliminate the plague. To those in the kingdom who are engaged in cultivating crops and raising cattle, Let your majesty distribute grain and fodder. To those in trade, give capital. To those in government service, assign proper living wages. Then those people, being intent on their own occupations, will not harm the kingdom. Your Majesty's revenues will be great, the land will be tranquil and not beset by thieves, and the people, with joy in their hearts, playing with their children, will dwell in open houses. And saying, so be it, the king accepted the chaplain's advice. He gave grain and fodder to the to those engaged in cultivating crops and raising cattle, capital to those in trade, proper living wages to those in government service. Then those people, being intent on their own occupations, did not harm the kingdom. The king's revenues became great, the land was tranquil and not beset by thieves, and the people, with joy in their hearts, playing with their children, dwelled in open houses. DN 5 Kuttadanta Sutta. निखिल जी
ब्रिंगिंग ट्रैंक्विलिटी टू लैंड, मतलब अपने राज्य में शांति लाना। सो इसमें एक ब्राह्मण कूटदंत है, वो भगवान बुद्ध को एड्रेस कर रहे हैं। लेट मी रीड। मास्टर गौतम, आई हैव हर्ड दैट यू once have to conduct a triple sacrifice. Now I do not understand all this, but I want to make a big sacrifice. It would be good if Master Gautama would explain this to me. इसमें वो कोई प्रॉब्ली यज्ञ की बात कर रहे हैं, जिसमें 16 तरह की रिक्वेस्ट, 16 तरह की आवश्यकताएं होती हैं। तो वो उनको पता नहीं है, मास्टर गौतमा को पता है, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि फिर भी मैं कोई एक बहुत कुछ इस प्रकार का यज्ञ, हवन, सेक्रीफाइस करना चाहता हूँ, अगर आप मुझे बता सकें। तो भगवान बुद्ध ने कूटदंत को बोला है कि ठीक है, मैं बोलता हूँ, आप उसको सुनिए। देन भगवान बुद्ध ने एक उनको कहानी या कथा बता रहे हैं कि एक समय एक राजा महाविजित थे, और वो काफी शक्तिशाली और धनवान थे, उनके पास बहुत सारा संपत्ति थी। अ, और महा एक बार उन राजा महाविजित ने जब एकांत में बैठ के सोच रहे थे, तो उनको विचार आया कि मैंने इतना सारा धन इकट्ठा किया है और मेरा राज्य भी काफी बड़ा है। अभी मैं ऐसा क्या यज्ञ करूं जिससे कि मेरी दीर्घकालिक सुख और फायदा हो मुझे। तो उसके लिए उन्होंने अपने पुरोहित को बुलाया और पुरोहित से कहा कि मैं कोई एक बहुत बड़ा यज्ञ या ऐसा समारोह करना चाहता हूँ, मैं जिससे मेरा दीर्घकालीन हित हो जाए, तो आप मुझे बताइए क्या करना है। तो फिर उस पुरोहित ने बोला कि राजा से कि राजा जी, इस समय आपका जो राज्य है, वो चोरों ने थोड़ा वहां पर उत्पात मचा रखा है, और जो नगर वगैरह है वहां पर परेशानियां हैं, ठग लोग घूम रहे हैं। और अगर आप इस मोमेंट पर सपोज अपने राज्य में टैक्स बढ़ाएंगे, तो ये गलत हो जाएगा। और अगर आपने ये सोचा कि मैं चोरों से या जो भी डाकू लोग हैं उनको मैं पकड़ कर सजा दे दूंगा, और उससे वो गायब हो जाएंगे, तो भी ये जो परेशानी है वो सुचारू रूप से खत्म नहीं हो पाएगी। और जो बच गए इस प्रोसेस में, तो उनके अंदर चूंकि फिर बदले की भावना आ जाएगी, तो फिर वो नुकसान पहुंचाएंगे आपके राज्य को। और अगर इसको खत्म करना है, तो मैं आपको पुरोहित ने बोला कि मैं आपको एक तरीका बताता हूँ, प्रॉब्ली वही उनके लिए यज्ञ माना जाएगा। यही समारोह कर दीजिए कि जो आपके राज्य में किसान है या जो पशुपालक है, उनको आप अनाज और चारा दे दीजिए। जो लोग व्यापारी हैं उनको आप पूंजी दे दीजिए। जो लोग राज्य की नौकरी कर रहे हैं उनको तनख्वाह अच्छी दे दीजिए। एंड जो लोग खुद का ऑक्यूपेशन, खुद का व्यवसाय कर रहे हैं, ऐसे में फिर वो लोग जो अपने अपने व्यवसाय में लगे हुए हैं, वो आपके राज्य को कोई नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाएंगे। आपके राज्य का धन राजस्व जो है वो बढ़ जाएगा, राज्य में शांति रहेगी। तो किंग ने बोला महाविजित ने कि ठीक है, ऐसा ही करते हैं। और उसने ऐसा किया, तो उसके राज्य में इसी प्रकार की शांति हो गई। लोग बाग बहुत खुश थे और अपने परिवार के साथ प्रसन्नता से रहते थे। ये कूटदंत सूत्र है। वेरी नाइस। जब मैंने इसको पहली बार पढ़ा था तो मुझे पूरा इकोनॉमिक्स जैसा लगा था, जो आजकल हमारे यहाँ नोबेल प्राइज मिलते हैं कि हाउ टू रिमूव पॉवर्टी और हाउ टू मेक पीपल हैप्पी।
और जब मैंने पहली बार पढ़ा था तो मैं सोच रही थी कि कि जो हमारे अभी सोशल स्ट्रक्चर में भी चल रहा है कि कुछ एक कम्युनिटीज को हटा करके दे थिंक कि ऐसा दिस इज नॉट द राइट वे, इनको इरेडिकेट करना चाहिए, या फिर देयर आर सम डिफरेंट थॉट्स ओवर दैट। तो ऑफ कोर्स दैट दैट इज नॉट अ सॉल्यूशन। That is very much clear from this text.
वो एक बहुत बड़ा डिस्कशन हो जाएगा। इसमें जो जितना लिखा है ना, वो वहां पर जो जम रही है बात, तो इतना जरूर है कि अगर आदमी गरीब, जो जो लोग गरीबी की वजह से अपराध में जा रहे हैं, उनको एटलीस्ट हम ऐसा करेंगे और उनको सही तरीके से रखेंगे तो उनका मन ही नहीं करेगा। तो आई थिंक समय भी हो गया। अगर आप लोगों को फर्दर कुछ कमेंट्स हैं। हाँ, विशाल जी ने कुछ लिखा। इट टीचेस व्हाट रियली लीड्स टू मैरिड एंड लॉन्ग टर्म बेनिफिट। इट्स नॉट यज्ञास sacrifice but kindness and compassion. True. True.
विशाल जी, आप बताएं कि आप किस जहां पर आप रह रहे हैं। टू माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग यू आर लिविंग इन यूएस। आई मीन, जो मैं समझ, ऐसी कॉन्वर्सेशन से बात पता चली है। तो वहां पर सोशल स्ट्रक्चर का कैसे, हाउ डू यू थिंक दैट बुद्धा's टीचिंग हैज एनी, डू यू सी any teachings there?
It's a very complex question, and it's going to be hard to answer in a short period of time. But I would say that see, the Western societies usually have a base that is comprised of Christian values, right? Because they're Christian countries, and the Christianity that's currently in vogue is the Christianity that's been reformed by the Enlightenment process in the Middle Ages and after that. So it's a very sort of sanitized form of Christianity, and it does teach a lot about sila, so virtue is very important, and the take care of your neighbor and that sort of thing. But then again, one could argue that these societies led to colonization and things like that. So it's a complex question, but I would say that there is a struggle in these societies also with changing values, rampant consumerism, breakdown of families and structures, and sort of the the religious structure of society is also breaking down. But there is probably still an undercurrent of some degree of virtue, and that's why Buddhism is quite becoming very popular, as you probably know, in these societies, because it builds from what Christianity was able to get these societies up to. So in Buddhism, virtue is just the basic sort of foundation on which you build. It's not a mean to itself. So, yeah, I mean, it's a complex question. It could, I think in some ways you're asking a very broad question, but if I was to focus mostly on Buddhism, I think the reason for an interest in Buddhism is because of uh, the younger generations have seen how their religious traditions don't really answer their questions to the level that they would like. because sort of they stop at virtue and non-harming, but then there's all this dogma and sort of ritual and belief and blind faith in certain miracles and things like that. So whereas Buddhism provides a framework that goes much beyond and is a very personal sort of faith and personal upliftment and personal evolution, which is very empowering because you're not at the mercy of some capricious God. So yeah, I think that's probably how I would answer it. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because your perspective of seeing there, I appreciate that. Thank you.
इसमें मैं थोड़ा सा और बोल देता हूँ पूनम जी, आपने जो बोला ना उसमें मुझे हमारी इसी बुक में है कि जो चक्रवर्ती सम्राट है उसमें और एक बुद्ध में क्या अंतर होता है। तो चक्रवर्ती सम्राट जो है उसका यही काम है कि वो प्रॉपरली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सकता है ग्रेन और धार्मिक रूल से राज कर सकता है, और जो उससे ऊपर जो होते हैं बुद्ध, उनका काम होता है कि वो व्यक्ति को अंदर से परिवर्तन कर दे। मतलब जैसे लेट्स से उसने गवर्नमेंट ने बोला कि सरकारी अस्पताल में इलाज मुफ्त है। अभी क्या हो रहा है, बुद्ध है तो वो उस इंश्योर करेंगे कि कहीं वो लोग इसका मिसयूज ना करें, सरकारी अस्पताल वाले भी। जैसे आई मीन सेकुलर वे में बोल रहा हूँ कि उसको भी मिसयूज कर लिया गया है कि जबरदस्ती ऑपरेशन कर दिया क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट से पैसा मिलने वाला है ना। तो या प्राइवेट सेक्टर में भी ऐसा हुआ है, सॉरी वट एवर। तो ये भगवान बुद्ध का काम था कि जो योजनाएं हैं उसमें लालच ना दिखाएं। एक तो पहली बात है राजा के इंटेंशन से ही कि हाँ चलो मैं वेलफेयर करूंगा, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है, तो वो चक्रवर्ती सम्राट बनेगा। लेकिन उस वेलफेयर स्कीम का दुरुपयोग ना हो, वो अंदर से कौन बदलता है, वो बुद्ध बदल सकते हैं हम सबको। नहीं तो मिसयूज तो होता ही है। कोई भी ग्रांट आती है लोग उसको मिसयूज कर सकते हैं, जबकि उसको यूनिफॉर्मली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होना चाहिए। बट दैट्स हाउ थिंग्स हैपेंस। प्रॉब्ली विशाल जी ने जो बोला कोलोनाइजेशन वगैरह, वो दैट इज प्रॉब्ली वी कैन रिफर टू सतांस, राइट? कि क्राइस्ट ने नहीं बोला, लेकिन उनका ये है कि नहीं हमारा देश समृद्ध हो, बाकी करो। तो दैट इज वेयर बुद्ध कम्स प्रॉब्ली। ये मैंने पढ़ा इसमें पुस्तक में।
हाँ, कि इंडिविजुअल बिल्कुल एम्फसाइज तो है कि इंडिविजुअल कैसे प्रोग्रेसिव होगा, आई डोंट नो, या कह लीजिए उसमें कितना दम आता है, दैट मेक्स इट इंडिविजुअल से स्टेट और स्टेट से एक नैरो पर्सपेक्टिव से ब्रॉडर पर्सपेक्टिव और ब्रॉडर से फिर नैरो में भी बात कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि लार्जर पर्सपेक्टिव को भी वो अल्टीमेटली एक इंडिविजुअल का कैसा धार्मिक लाइफ है उस पे ले आए कि शील पालन हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा। सो दैट्स दैट्स आई थिंक सो ब्रॉडर टू नैरो, ऐसा टीचिंग्स को very much applicable for an individual also, not just at the state level. That's what I can make out. Baki, we are in the process, I think. So all societies, Indian, American, that's what.
I'm curious to hear from you your opinion on how Buddhist teachings are finding space in India. I mean, perhaps that's even a more complex. But I'm curious to hear
We are in
that.
work in progress, huh? So we all in work in progress. That's how I'll say. There's still, in fact, it's more complicated in the sense ki, uh, uh, because we already have a base of spiritual teachings. So there is there is a possibility of, or there is I can see manipulation also, teachings, but there is also purity which lies in this country, this land. I mean, I feel very बहुत अच्छा है कि I am here, I'm born here actually, because this land has a different it's different from other lands, I think so. मैं पता नहीं आपको बता पाऊंगी कि नहीं बता पाऊंगी, बट हाँ, इवन दो there is a change which is very radical change is going on. There is a side distinction from separation. Inclusiveness is not there, but still at base level, people know what at least they can understand कि this is the purity. बहुत सारा नहीं जानते, लेकिन there are people who understand this, what is pure, to distinct from purity to that wisdom is there in India. And for that I appreciate this land. मैं पता नहीं आपको कैसे बोला है कि ठीक से नहीं बोला है, लेकिन फिर भी I try.
What does Nikhil ji and Yashika ji have to say about this?
आई मीन ये तो है, एक सेंस ऑफ ग्रेटिट्यूड तो है कि आई मीन आई एम इन द लैंड ऑफ बुद्धा, बॉर्न इन द लैंड ऑफ बुद्धा। एक सेंस ऑफ ग्रेटिट्यूड तो रहता है। और साथ ही मुझे लगता है कि इंडिविजुअल एफर्ट्स है विशाल जी। इट्स नॉट एनीथिंग रिजर्व फॉर एनी पर्टिकुलर लैंड पीपुल, लाइक मे बी यू आर समवेयर फार अवे बट यू आर हेल्पिंग अस सो मच फ्रॉम देयर। सो I think it's individual efforts, and things would evolve with time. Baki,
That's true.
yeah.
I don't know. I think socially, you see people doing good. Largely like in the. I think Indians are good people. I don't know. I mean, if I can say, if I look at the shields, is it kya wo se, do they follow it to the T? I'm not too sure, but we're largely people, good people with good intentions, for ourselves and for others. So if you, I mean, I just to give an example, I was coming from Yamuna Nagar in bus very recently to Delhi. Yamuna Nagar, Vishalji, is where the monastery Sangharama is being built and is now there, and inauguration is going to happen. And me being from Delhi metropolitan, and I was like, I was scared because it's Haryana, so there are stories around. Okay, it's unsafe, and are you sure you're going to travel by yourself in state bus? And so on and so forth. So I was, I told myself, okay, it's going to be an adventure, so let's do it. Because personally, I'm not very scared of doing all that. But since I was doing after a long time, and I've heard so many stories about things being unsafe, etc., I I found myself functioning from my perceptions. So there was that fear. Uh, Now, interesting as it is, my experience actually was completely opposite. People did not make me feel uncomfortable at all. I hopped into a bus. It was full, packed, and I was like really uncomfortable in my two bags, and like trying to see if I need to protect myself and in my this thing. And there was this person who was sitting on a seat, and he very kindly, and like I'm young and he was young, but very kindly he offered the seat. He got up and he said, "Hey, please sit. You seem like," he didn't even say anything, you know. So, and that's one example. There were many such examples that happened in this very journey. So, at the grassroots, I feel that we are people who follow or through on these different elements of respect, different elements of being kind to each other. That being said, I also believe that at a political level, I think I don't see that happening. But again, I'm just basing it right now on what I'm hearing, right? So there are perceptions being given to me, fed to me in news, etc., which I'm chewing on and then making my own perceptions. So I'm commenting like this with that hopefully with that humility, but nevertheless, I do feel that somewhere our leaders might be lacking that.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts.
Can I say something on this? My
Please.
thoughts. See, in our country, in India, there are various sects and various paths. And broadly, what happens is that, or what has happened is that you just accept it and follow it. Do not want to use the word blindly, but in a way, that's what I mean. But when people started thinking more and more, then you start questioning things. And then you follow at the same time, if you have a desire to go further on your spiritual path, which will help you to nirvana, then it's very difficult to find whatever teachings are there to take you up ahead. What appealed me best, not that Buddhism is new to me, because I have learned it right from my childhood. Magar, I did not know these aspects. So when I learned that there are ways to go up, and then there is a path where how you have to proceed on that path is very clearly outlined. And what appeals me, and I suppose what appeals many other young people, is that there is nothing sacrosanct. This is only I can achieve. Buddha has not said that. What he has said and what he has done is that, well, this is the path I have gone and this is what I did. You try it out. If you think it appeals you, if you think it reaches you where you want to reach, you go on that path. So there is a rationality and there is no dictation. It is your own agency that you are using to use all those teachings and proceed ahead. And that is where you find satisfaction. And I think this kind of teachings are not very clear in our country when you follow whatever sect you want to follow. I do not mean to ever say that our lot many spiritual identities that have occurred in our country were any less. But the way this path has been very clearly, step by step, shown is something that I at least haven't found. And this is the kind of teachings which appeals. So those who are seeking this, for them, yes. But also, Vishalji, I would say that according to my understanding, of course, and my perceptions, that in present day in India, the youth is much more materialistic and it is not it is going towards the Western countries' ideologies. And that is where you find lot of people going into the habits of pleasure seeking, using pleasure seeking devices. And but I do not know, but I exactly do not know, but I assume that when you go into the materialistic life, pleasure seeking things that you want, in that case, your goal is not clear. And when you do not have a clear goal, they get wavered. It's only when they mature perhaps, not in age, mature in their mental aspects, in their thinking, and then thinking on a very, very serious note that they get attracted to this path. This is, in nutshell, how I think in our country things are. And one thing which I say, Array, from Hindu, you are becoming Buddhist. Now, this is the kind of layman's outlook. Now, you have turned Buddhist, you have turned Hindu. Um, this is something very discomforting to me, but this is actually what is happening in the present day. Uh, and somehow the atmosphere in our country these days is such which really creates divisions. So, lot of turmoil is there, I tell you, and that's what I want to end.
Yeah, thank you, Auntie, for saying that. I wanted to say it, but I think I could not have let my own passions be kept aside while sharing it, which is what you did very beautifully.
Yeah, Bhartiji, that was very eloquent and very clear, and you're absolutely right, but what you outlined as the feature of Buddhism that's attractive to you is also the reason it's attractive to many other people. The fact that the teachings are very structured and laid out in a way that can be followed and tested and tried, and sort of it has to ring true to you, and there's not sort of a dogma that you have to believe. That's very attractive to people around the world, and likewise even in the West, and that's why it's popular here too. But I think the issue about the material indulgences that you talked about, um, yeah, it's very hard, I think, in a country with India's recent history, with a lot of sort of like pillage and colonization and poverty, to not go through that material sort of enchantment. Because even in the Buddha's time, if you look at the history of India at that time, it was very affluent, very materially comfortable. And that's when the yearning for a deeper truth sort of led to a churning. And the Buddha was just one of many samanas, like the Shramanic tradition, with the Jains and the others, the Ajivikas. So I'm hopeful that maybe uh, this sort of enchantment with materialism perhaps will go through a phase and things will settle down, and maybe the Buddha's teachings will rise to the surface like they did 2,500 years ago. But then again, we don't know.
It's not just about India going towards, like moving towards materialism, because, I mean, the history makes sense, but I also think that, sorry, maybe a social conversation this becomes, but I think that there's a lot of disparity. That's so it's not like that. Because and the population is a lot, the disparity is also a lot in terms of the poor becoming poorer and the rich becoming richer. So what you're saying just now, in that thing has to be factored in, with the idea that the population is so much that
Yeah.
even if we were to have like like good policies now in place which are being executed, it will take us some time to sort of bridge that gap. I mean, what we just read is too ideal for India, is one thing that came in my mind.
But it's too idealistic for any part of the world, right? Yeah. Well, I could share that, in my travels and with the Kubajans in Thailand, multiple teachers have said that Indian people have a lot of parami, and they have a deep understanding of karma, and a lot of shraddha, which is very, very important. Those factors are very important. and are not easy to find in other societies. So the only thing that, and I'm just sharing what they say, what is missing is right view. And that's what I think Bharati was talking about, in terms of describing Buddhism. And so anyway, thank you for sharing.
So, out of curiosity, how and just from your experience, how is the structure in the Buddhist countries?
You mean social structure?
Yeah, I mean, because the question started from your experience of the
Yeah.
social structure and principles being applied in US, and then it went to India. So,
Yeah.
I think it would be
So
good to know.
the Buddhist country that I could speak to with some degree of confidence is Thailand, not Sri Lanka or Laos or Burma. And in Thailand, see, Thailand is very unique because it's not just that it's a Buddhist society, but it's the only country in Asia that was never colonized. So it has had the good fortune of being able to maintain its social mores and structure without sort of this very, very alien impingement, right? So because so so I would say that any experiences I have to be taken not just with looking at Buddhist structure and Buddhist society, but also that important caveat that they were never colonized. So that being said, I would say that, and I think some people on this call have been to Thailand. I remember, I think in one talk, Deepti Ji was sharing her experience in Thailand, and no society is perfect, and Thailand's got a lot of problems too. But you see a general level of the understanding of the five precepts of Sila, and the understanding of merit, or they call it boon, which is the word from punya. It is quite deeply ingrained in people, like just common people, like poor people, middle class people, even wealthy people, which is the most difficult, I think. So yeah, I would say that in general, to me, that what's most stark and uh, the most obvious is that, like, you see that they have a very and they have a lot of self-confidence in their tradition. Like they're not second guessing it, they're not getting overawed by other traditions or other religions. They're very secure in the idea that their traditions are, and I say this with some degree of trepidation, are the most refined or the most superior even. Uh, so yeah, I would say that there tends to be that understanding of punya, boon barami, they call it punya paramita, more so than I've seen in any part of the world, actually. I don't know what Deepti G's experience was. I remember she had talked about it once before, but
Yeah, I would agree to that actually. At least that's from my, again, very limited time spent in Thailand. And, despite the fact, the other contrast is that Thailand is also quite materialistic. The way it is growing and the consumerism is also quite
yes.
visible there. And alongside, you can still see, women coming down from the houses and kneeling down on the road and making offerings to the monks and so on. And even when we have lay people visiting from Thailand in India, we see that sense of devotion is very strong in them. So just contrasting it to India is that, while faith exists in the hearts of people, even if it is coming from the Vedic tradition, but we've lost the Samana tradition to a great extent, at least in the city lives and all. We don't get to see that very often. It might be very limited to some very specific places. So when we go to Thailand, it's very refreshing for us to see that kind of acceptance of the Shraman tradition and going alongside the modern life. And that being said, it also seems that gradually there is a slow drift towards, I don't know whether people are questioning that, but potentially a bit of, atheism coming in various, in the modern life in some sense. That's a sense that I get from a very, very far, remote understanding of things, so I may be wrong in that. But yes, it's got a very strong culture influenced by Buddhism, and I'm also recalling a visit to Burma a couple of years ago, which is also a Buddhist country. There also you do see that, you know, the people paying a lot of respect to the monks and the traditions, and having pagodas all over the country. So what lies in their hearts is very difficult to say for me, but what you know, just from a visual standpoint, one sees that um, there is an acceptance, and there is a integration of uh, the what might Buddhist principles be in the lives of people. Now, to what extent they live it, I don't know. But at least on a surface level, it appears to be so, which in India is not as much. Uh, so yeah, that would be my view. And of course, then Bharti ji and couple of others have also been to Thailand. So if they might want to add, Bharti auntie has been there. Uh, maybe Geeta also.
See, I have visited Thailand only once. Um, and this question was always there in my mind, that there is so much materialism over there also. But in contrast, I have also seen, whatever little that I've seen, is that people have a lot of definitely faith. And I do not know what kind of lives they live, because that I have not seen closely at all. But definitely a lot of materialism, and on the other side, lot of faith. I do not know uh, whether that faith is driven by devotion, or that faith is driven by the social norms, because social norms also push the people into following a particular thing. So I have not clear understanding on this issue, but even there, what we say consumerism, and I would like to call it pleasure seeking life is definitely there. But I don't have much clarity on that aspect. Thank you.
I just want to make one more point, Vishalji, to what you said. You know, that sense of confidence that exists in Thai people. I think that's a sense that I also got, that they feel very secure in what they believe in, and there is a sense of that might even be superior or better than what, you know, or refined than others. That's a different point. But just that sense of security and comfort with what they practice, I think is also a key factor, or could be a key factor in the continuance of a tradition. Going back to one of the points that was in you know that was discussed some time back, the you know the continuity of traditions. Sometimes we kind of uh, question them, but may not have enough background in why they were set in the first place. So somehow the Thai people have that in their culture, that they believe in what they are doing, and you know therefore the reasons of it continuing also become stronger, because they value what they have and what they are doing.
Yes, and I think some of that has to certainly be ascribed to the lack of colonization, you know, that because that is a pretty traumatic event in any society. Because if you
Yeah.
read about even like India in the 11th century, and you know those early Middle Ages, there was an extreme degree of self-confidence in the Indic tradition.
Right.
But yeah, to the Thais, I think it's that they were never colonized, but they also have a very strong sense of uh, the refinement of the sila, you know, like the punya. They like there's some things that perhaps can't be really shared on this online forum, but they have a very strong sense of that, which has allowed them to resist a lot of proselytizing from other traditions. because they feel that those traditions don't have much to offer them because their tradition, their current tradition, includes everything that is offered to them and much more. So a lot of that sense of confidence also comes from that. And then they've had, many hundreds of years of masters like, the Kubajans and things like that. So I think all together sort of creates a sense of confidence in their traditions.
I would like to add one thing about our country here, is that presently, in the present day situations, you see a lot of insecurity.
Yes.
Insecurity in relation to conversions. And then that is what is driving the mass or the, I would not want to name anything, but some people, some agencies, and some people who are controlling the country or leading the country in a way, very, very insecure. And that is where then they very vehemently proclaim going back to the roots kind of thing. And I think this is also actually shaking up the country rather than stabilizing it. And that is for me as an individual, it really concerns me. It really concerns me. And that is where, if you go around, that recently that I had been to monastery and stayed for about a week or so, and going to the villages on that. In the village area, there is not much of doubt. That's what I feel. People come perhaps with the open mind, they sit down, understand what it is. And there is no issue of conversion in Buddhism. That's what I understand. And when there is no issue of conversion, there is no issue of facing the challenge also. So that is where I think, and Buddha was considered and is considered a part of this country.
Yes.
And that is also where people don't find these practices of Buddha's teachings as an alien thing.
Yes.
And this is a big difference between other countries and our country. And both, challenge because of conversion. I do not know why people say that I am now a Buddhist, I have converted to Buddhism. Buddhism just is, there is nothing like Buddhism. Buddha never said of isms. And so if one goes into those areas, I think, and if we talk about it, and when people hear it, then they don't find it challenging that you are trying to change my Hinduism to Buddhism and all this. So that ism thing is not a challenge to Buddha's teachings. That's what I say. Thank you.
I'll just add something. Like I had been to both these countries, Thailand and Sri Lanka, recently, and both on a professional trip. So the in terms of religion or following, both are highly Buddhist countries. Again, there is a lot of materialism, as Dipti has exactly pointed out. It is within Thailand also. The culture and the kind of behavior pattern is quite different when it comes to city life. Especially you go to Bangkok and other cities, the lifestyle is completely different. Yes, there is a lot of faith because it's like they call themselves Buddhist because they follow that religion. In India, it's a very diversified country. You don't have one particular kind of a thing which people follow. There are different religions and different uh, path people follow. So in that way, when we say they have this faith as such, but again, when I look at it,
humanity is humanity. Those who follow really understand the teachings of Buddha, how much it is going into their behavior when it comes to meeting people and understanding. There is not much of change as such, in terms of, because then sometimes it becomes more of a ritual also, whether it is India or whether it is Thailand. It's for an individual to imbibe those qualities, understanding the exact teachings of what the Lord is talking about. It is how I will put it across, because I've seen the differences in different countries. But when you go to Sri Lanka, again, in the city, you will see lot of temples. Unlike in Bangkok, you don't see that. You do have pagoda. You will see the monks on the road. Thailand, you have particular places to see them. So there is a difference. The people are very the core Buddhism. When I look at it in terms of the city like Colombo, people are more into that Buddhism thing and more into those following the precepts, and more of that is what I generally feel that they have that kind of the faith which is very grounded, I would say, or unshakable faith they have, because they read a lot. They read a lot on the suttas and everything. A few people with whom I've interacted, like, while I was traveling, the driver or the actual professional people, the common people who I'm talking about, not in the place where the monks are staying or where people are following that or meeting up with the monastery or going and paying respect into the monastery. I'm not talking about that, because they are more devoted in that. I'm talking about in general people, the way like how we lay people live in India. They also talk a lot about the precepts and understand the teachings of the Buddha, that they're not supposed to do so and so things, because they're generally Buddhists. So they take these five precepts or eight precepts, and some of them really follow it, is how I will look at the difference. Having said that, whichever country you go, if your human being is human being, like when you really understand something, you will follow it, is how I will put it across. So we cannot differentiate it as such. How much has gone into each individual is only through how much they are following it. Otherwise, it's more into rituals and other things, is how I see it, to be very honest, because I've dealt with the people on a professional basis. When you go and meet up with the office, talk to people or the general common people, then you understand it. It's all the same. But on the whole, people are friendly and very helpful. Same like Indians. I have not seen much of difference. In Sri Lanka also, people are very, very helpful and very genuinely, they come forward and help. This is my experience, basically.
Thank you, Geeta ji.
कुछ
So,
बोलना चाह रही थी तुम?
हाँ जी,
Yashika was
हाँ, पर अब मैं सोच रही हूँ कि ना बोलूँ, because this is just a long session and everybody has it's Sunday, so
So thank you everyone for joining in for discussion. मैं आप लोगों से अनुरोध करूंगी, गीता जी, दीप्ति जी, आप मतलब नॉट जस्ट इनवाइट करने पर ही आप बोले, आप अपने आप से भी बोले, बिकॉज वी वैल्यू योर इनपुट and I really appreciate for all of you to join in this discussion. तो निखिल जी, आप
क्लोजिंग
समापन
सेंस आप
करेंगे?
कर दीजिए क्लोजिंग सेंस।
थैंक यू। मैं पूरी करूंगी। भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं, रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता, सर्वबुद्धानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते। भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वधर्मानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वसङ्घानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते अरहन् सम्मा सम्बुद्धो भगवा बुद्धं भगवन्तं अभिवादेमि स्वाक्षातो भगवता धम्मो धम्मं नमस्सामि सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावकसङ्घो सङ्घं नमामि Thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.